Hello, everyone. Thanks again for joining us for a new episode of the Crypto Use Case podcast. We are joined here today by two special guests, Fabricio Tota and Alexandre Reda from Mercado Bitcoin. Fabricio and Alexandre bring a very strong resume from tech, traditional finance market, and now crypto. And they work for a very unique business, Mercado Bitcoin, a leader in cryptocurrency solution in LATAM and all over the world. Thanks a lot for joining us, guys. Happy to have you here and to dive into all things Brazil, crypto, Mercado Bitcoin, and more. Maybe to start things off, let's go over some brief introductions, who you are, what your role at Mercado Bitcoin is.
Cool. Well, thanks for having us. It's a pleasure to be here. I myself, I've joined the crypto space back in 2018 when I joined Mercado Bitcoin. Before that, I worked for 20 years on Tradify, on a retail broker here in São Paulo, Brazil, where I live. And yes, here at Mercado Bitcoin, I started with the OTC desk, then moved to tokenization, then moved to crypto markets, and now I have a kind of a cross, role here at the company, of taking care of everything in crypto outside the company. So, keeping up with what other guys are doing in the space, innovation, open innovation here in Brazil also. But yeah, most of my time I spent, sometimes going to conference and so on, meeting people and see what's going on out there. We can make some money out of all these innovations with our own efforts here at Mercado Bitcoin.
Thanks for having me. I'm also from São Paulo, Brazil. Myself, I'm 36 years old. I've been in the financial markets for about 15 years now, working in TradFi markets until 2022 when I joined MB. I was working mainly in investment banking, DCM, and credit solutions prior to MB, and came here to build a different infrastructure for capital markets, and it's what we're doing since 2022. And now I'm responsible for the tokenization solutions platform here in MB. So really pleased to talking to you guys here. Thanks for having us.
Awesome. Thanks again for the intro and for joining us, guys. And Alexandre, you have a pretty unique title, I think, for folks working in the crypto world, head of DCM and fixed income. I don't think that's a very common title for crypto folks, but we're going to be diving deeper in what that exactly means, especially for such a crypto native company like MB. But before we jump into MB itself, maybe let's just set the stage for our audience around the Brazil market, crypto and blockchain in the region in LATAM, and how that whole situation is playing out. Maybe starting with how did we get here? How did we get to crypto adoption in Brazil? Of course, there is traditional banking. There has been massive success with fintechs, neobanks such as Nubank, and now more and more there is reliance on cryptocurrencies, stablecoins, and more. So would you guys mind giving us a quick history lessons around the evolution of financial services in the region, how folks, common people, institutions have interacted with this different type of financial services, and how did we get here where we are today?
Yeah, maybe Brazil is very unique in some sense. I think it always starts, back 15, 20 years ago, maybe, when all the retail investment landscape here in Brazil started changing. People in general here in Brazil, they use banks, and I mean traditional big banks, big retail banks, for everything in their financial life, from paying bills, getting their salary, holding, interest accounts, and even investing. Everything done in their big banks, in kind of a close, maybe not that close, but seems to be close relationship with their managers, people taking care of their accounts, and so on. Things started changing, 20, 15 years ago, when people, some companies like XP and other retail brokers here, independent brokers here in Brazil, started questioning and challenging, the status quo. Hey, maybe you don't have to do everything you do in your financial life at one bank. Banks, maybe they're good for giving you credit, for example, but maybe for investing, it's very specific, and this is another story. So slowly people started, hey, maybe we have other options and maybe other initiatives, like from the stock exchange trying to democratize access to stocks. Maybe from the treasury here in Brazil started offering bonds for individuals, a very strong option here given the interest rate in Brazil. So slowly people started moving from the banks to independent brokers to invest their money. And then crypto started being a thing back 10 years ago, 11 to be more specific, just to coincide with when Mercado Bitcoin was founded, of taking money out of the banks to put somewhere else to invest and make some money. So I think that with a fast forward in the story, today is a very dynamic space of investing, of the capital markets. There is still some space, some room for improvement in the capital markets. But today, investing in general for retail, for high net worth is a thing. People talk about it. People do invest in equities and other bonds, in private or public bonds, and so on. And crypto has its space, being Bitcoin, Ether, whatever, or even tokenized assets. Brazil has a very strong background of people investing in fixed income. It's much more 80% in fixed income and 20 in equities, something like that, instead of just the opposite, like in other countries like US, for example. I think Alexandre can say something about that also with his experience on TradFi, but bringing some color, to what we're talking about and how is the investment landscape in Brazil. I think it's a good point to start,
XP Investimentos is a somewhat of like a Robin Hood for Brazil. Would you describe it that way? Started in 2001, public company worth $7 billion.
Like a Robin Hood.
Yeah.
It would be a Robin Hood merged with an Charles Schwab, something like that.
Yeah. And then, but started in 2001, so it's kind of like a very early internet company compared to when Robin Hood started. You also have Nubank that you mentioned, and then you also talked about fixed income. What is the risk-free rate or the treasury rate that is offered in Brazil for context for folks? Yes, I know it's higher, but it's like teens, right? Like low teens.
It's teens, and it's increasing rapidly. So 90 days ago, it was about 11 and a half when you're looking at maybe a 3 to 4 year maturity, right? And now it's about 15%. So wow. 90 days ago, from 90 days ago to today, it increased like 300 basis points, 350 basis points. So it's really volatile in the last months. So, but it's in the mid-teens.
Awesome, and that explains a little bit of the run to fixed income and to yield in reais. The money burns a little bit more than it does in US dollars. But yeah, sorry, yes, I interrupted you. I just wanted to put some color on some of the facts that Fabricio pulled out.
Yes, that's really important, because what I was going to add to the fixed income landscape is that, as Tota was saying, our investment environment has really developed a lot. So we have these other brokerage firms, independent, to when maybe 10 to 15 years ago, when all money, like a majority of people's investments were concentrated in banks. But when we look at the lending business. It's still concentrated in banks until today. So when we look at maybe mortgage financing, right? So in the US, you have like 60% of mortgages financed by the capital markets. So you have Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and all these securitization structures, which in the other end are bundled into investments to the public. So here in Brazil, it's a lot less developed as in the US. So it's probably the opposite. So you have like 80% of this funding being made by banks. And what we're observing here in Brazil is that this private lending landscape is possibly also going to be disrupted by fintech. So in the last 10 years, our central bank and our SEC here in Brazil, which is called CVM, are really making the path to the regulatory environment for the fintechs to flourish. So some of the regulations that are in place right now are really young and provided a way for these fintechs to develop here in Brazil. So nowadays we have like about $5 to $6 billion being lended by these fintechs, and probably 10 years ago it was like close to zero. And this is providing underlying assets for us to increase our fixed income capital market structure. So, and this is really a way to providing investment via blockchain. So what we're doing right now is bundling these assets, these loans that are made by fintechs, into fixed income structures in the blockchain and making them available as investments to our investors here in MB. And this is probably a big trend here for the next decade. So we're really into this right now.
So for context, right? Usually when like legacy banks make loans, they give you a mortgage, and the bank will be holding that mortgage. That's what's happened in Brazil for most of those loans. Historically, it's what happened in the US pre Fannie and Freddie being issued. And it's kind of like the more traditional banking model. What you're mentioning is there's changes in regulation in Brazil that allowed fintechs to start issuing these loans. I'd like to hear a little bit more about what those loans are. And then what Mercado Bitcoin is doing. And I think before we get into specifically what you're doing, I'd like to hear a little bit more about like what Mercado Bitcoin is, as like what's the whole brand around it. But you guys are grabbing those loans issued by those fintechs, packaging them, and distributing it to people so they can start investing. So you're essentially securitizing those and playing the role of what Fannie and Freddie would be playing in the US, if you will. I know it's not exactly the same, but kind of like freeing the balance sheet from these fintechs so they can start playing with it. So before we get into it, tell us a little bit about Mercado Bitcoin. What's the core business, how it started? What's the main thing you guys do? Talk a little bit about size, number of users, and so on. So folks that are not Brazilians, have not heard of Mercado Bitcoin, can get an idea of like the whole like structure you guys operate under.
Well, today we are a digital assets platform, and not only a crypto exchange. So as we offer crypto assets, tokenized assets, startup equities, and so on, the platform. We are also a payment institution, dealing both with crypto and the TradFi, the traditional financial system. It will be impossible to say that we are a crypto exchange. But yes, that was how it started 11 years ago. Crypto exchange for you to buy Bitcoin, then Litecoin, then Bitcoin Cash, then Ether, XRP, and so on. Just like a lot of others around the world. But with some very clear objectives and mindset. First of all, was the best practice for industries, especially the financial industry. Like KYC, AML, trying to bring people around, hey, how a regulation back then in 2013, 14, 15, and so on, how it could look like if one day in the future, that the future is now, actually, it happens. So trying to be very close, to TradFi, even being very hard, that close, back 10, 8 years ago, let's say. But that was the idea. And to make really easy to people to buy Bitcoin at the end of the day. You guys, those who are in the space for a lot of time, hey, how can I buy Bitcoin? Hey, find P2P, a trustful P2P guy, but take care of your wallet, take care of your seed, do not lose it, take care of your phone, and say, hey, I don't want all this stuff, So it was the easy answer to the question how to buy Bitcoin, like many other exchanges. But I think that how do we evolve into a digital assets platform and not only a crypto exchange? I think that bear markets in general, they help a lot all this space to evolve and to bring new stuff and to rebuild stuff. I remember being here in back 2018, pretty hard, bear market, and one day we look a bunch of other guys here and say, hey, we can't be, only supporting and praying for Bitcoin to go up again. We need to do something. We had at that time over 1 million clients in 2018. So what could we do? And at that time was that what happened, all that security token offering around the world, especially in the US. So we kind of brought this idea to Brazil and say, hey, how can we offer some securities using tokens, using blockchain, and so on? But we were lucky enough to attract, people like me and Alexandre. Alexandre wasn't with us at the time, but people from TradFi, from banks, from brokers, from financial market infrastructures here in Brazil, say, hey, we know what we can't do. Offering equities on chain, pretty nice idea, but the Securities Commission will be knocking at your door the next day. So we knew what was impossible to do at that time. So we started looking from non-securities, but financial instruments that won't be securities under Brazilian law, under Brazilian regulation, to be offered using blockchain and using this client base of over 1 million clients. So we tried to find at first public bonds here in Brazil called precatórios, but easy to understand. When you win a cause against government, you don't get the money, you get this bond, this judiciary bond that is tradable. So the idea was to tokenize this kind of bond and offer people to make up to more than 20% a year, using this bond with 2-year maturity, something like that. I say, hey, maybe it's a good idea trying to find these other instruments, clearly, or at least, it's disputable if they are or not securities, but with a very close relationship with the Securities Commission, with this background from the executives, being here that were at least not well known, but at least acquainted with all this regulated stuff. I think that was the thing that differentiated Mercado Bitcoin, and still does, today from other players here in Brazil, for example. People very experienced, and we know, maybe we don't know exactly what we need to do in the future, but we clearly know what we can't do. In terms of do not step in, the regulations, regulator seat, avoiding any kind of stop order, and we know how to deal with these situations, and trying to bridge the gap, between the crypto space and TradFi. I think that's the way we're doing business, in this, maybe 4 or 5 years. here at Mercado Bitcoin. And this makes us a digital assets platform and not only a crypto exchange. Of course, we love when the Bitcoin hits new all-time highs because we have a lot of people willing to buy Bitcoin, a lot of holders, a lot of traders, and so on.
Yeah, and just a little addition to that, Martin. So since to 2013, which was when we started operating here, so we have now 4 million clients. So Fabricio was saying 1 million clients back then in 2018. Now we have already more than 4 million clients. We are a company of 400 employees, and we are close to surpassing 1 billion reais in tokenized assets, which is about $160 million in issued tokens and issued and sold tokens. So this makes us the third biggest private credit tokenization company in the world. So we're really pleased to in seeing what was this 2024 for us in terms of developing these other digital asset businesses. Fabricio said, not only the cryptocurrency business, but also the lending business, the DCM and tokenization business, our ECM equity tokenization. Also, we have it here in MB, and it's regulated by our CVM. We're tokenizing other assets, not only securities, as Fabricio said, real estate assets, music, royalty assets, and so on. So when we look at how much we developed in these last years, we're a lot more complete in terms of products and services.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about, I love the metric 160. So you said 1 billion reais. The real is like about 6 reais per dollar, give or take, after the most recent devaluation. That's, call it $170 million in US dollars in assets and in the tokenization play. Tell us about like what products are there, right? Like what's the 80-20 there? Like what is the underlying credit that is being issued? Who is buying it? Why do it on chain? Tell us a little bit more about the rationale behind that and kind of like the business model in general.
Right. So when we look at the 80-20, when we dive into the 80%, we are looking at DCM or fixed income products, the DCM business, right? And the ECM business, which are equity products. So on the fixed income side, our underlying assets are private loans to companies or corporations. This would be about 30 to 35% of that. And the biggest part are securitized assets. So we have underlyings as payroll deductible loans. We have receivables, credit card receivables, farm loans, which in Brazil it's a big percentage of GDP. Like the most part of Brazil and the economy is the agri business. So we have a large number of underlying assets being sold right now. And all of these structures, these securitized structures, they have a senior tranche and a junior tranche. And what we do is, especially to build up our client base and work with the security and protection to our investors, since we're building up this confidence for our clients, is we're only working with the senior tranche right now, and the junior tranche is especially big for the protection to be also big. So it's around 20 to 30% right now. So this is maybe the 80% of the products on the fixed income side. And when we look at the ECM part of the business, our background here in MB is from people that invest in fintechs and startups since maybe 2014 here in Brazil, which it was when this VC market really started to flourish, right? It's not. The U.S. started to develop in terms of VC a lot before, right? So maybe 10 years from now, it was the main growth of the VC business and the fintech and startup business. So our background here in B is from investors that started investing in these types of businesses really early here in Brazil. So our ecosystem and network right now is a lot of fintechs and startups which are close to us that started getting funding with us, right? Us securitizing their funding, and that made these guys even closer. And we started to issue equity securities from these guys. So we got to know them better. We got to know their loan portfolio for these fintechs, especially. We got to know how secure they were and how they operated. And once we got the confidence that the business was good, like with a track record and knowing these businesses, we started issuing equity from them. And this was really groundbreaking here in Brazil, because we're issuing tokens with these equity of these fintechs underlying these tokens. And these are fintechs that are maybe in a year or 2 years multiplying by 2 or 3 their valuation. And they're profitable startups and fintechs. So this is we're starting to position ourselves as the investment banking for fintechs and startups here in Brazil, because the whole ecosystem is being serviced here at MB. So this is maybe the 80% of tokenization we're doing right now, Martin.
Awesome.
That's very exciting. I just have a couple quick questions. Sorry, Martin. One of them has to do with the end-to-end life cycle of these transactions. You're originating the deals by having relationships with these fintechs, having that trusted brand as their new investment bank. Let's say you put the deals together and then you distribute the deals to the market, to your existing customers. How does that distribution process looks like? Is it a mix of retail investors and institutional investors that you guys have relationships with? How do you go about that? And then the second thing is, what is your guys' relationship with the traditional investment banks, traditional private credit shops? How are they thinking about a firm like Mercado Bitcoin?
Yeah, interesting questions here, Emanuele. Following up on the first, we really kind of developed this whole channel structure here at MB. We started by selling these products to our retail investors. So we already had, as Fabricio said, 1 million investors here. So we started selling to these guys.
So the initial thing was the senior tranche of fixed income. That's the first product that came in, right?
The first product was, as Fabricio said, judiciary bonds.
Okay,
right?
Yeah.
And then we started selling other underlying products that weren't securitized yet. But when we saw that we had this market fit, and when we saw what the market was doing, not only selling to retail investors, but especially XP that we were mentioning before, they were really growing, and they did grow. I worked in XP. It was my previous experience, so I saw this being built there. It really grew by selling their products through advisors, as like Schwab ecosystem, right? So what the second phase was starting to sell our products to the B2B advisors channel. So we built this B2B channel. Then we bought a company in Portugal to be our base in Europe to distribute these products to our clients. So that was maybe the third part of our channel building. Then we started, we already had an institutional base for the crypto markets. And then we started building our institutional channel base for fixed income. So this would be really close to a TradFi investment bank selling fixed income products to hedge funds, maybe to here in Brazil, what would be an oak tree in the US, right? So hedge funds specialized in buying private credit. So this was kind of how our channel base developed here. And nowadays we are working with all these guys, and we work especially in the fintech ecosystem, as I was saying, but as well, we are working in the corporate bond issuance. So kind of trying to attack all these niches of clients, of issuers. I guess the second question, Emanuele,
was how traditional investment banks look at a company like Mercado Bitcoin now that it's entering this DCM space.
We don't see this business maybe competing with them yet, so they're not like that bothered with it. We don't see that. We maybe partner with them in some issuances to maybe syndicate a loan. So maybe a bank is booking an issuance there, and we can syndicate it, selling to our clients. So we don't see this competitiveness right now. We're probably gonna have to be a lot bigger than we are today to maybe start to bother them. So it's not a problem for now.
Here in Brazil, I don't think it's that needed, as we have a super decent payment system, and democratic, widespread, and so on. But maybe offering a decent access to the capital markets is our banking, them banking, you know? It's kind of giving a good access to the capital market for companies that have are kind of underserved today. So I think that we started growing, you know, and finding our place in the market. People have noticed that, but I think, but not enough, you know, for them to try to occupy the same space. I have a lot of companies talking about tokenization and doing something with technology and so on here in Brazil. But at the end of the day, we have one very important thing that not many companies in Brazil and the crypto space have. We have clients, over 4 million. People
Distribution.
willing to buy stuff, you know, use it to our brand, they trust us, you know, it's 11 years in the business. So it really makes a lot of difference when it comes down to, say, not a new guy on the block, you know, trying to offer a kind of different and technological stuff with no clients, with no track record whatsoever. So I think that's the space where we are into here in Brazil.
Yeah, no, I think you pointed to something that's very interesting, which is a very nuanced point, right? Like banking the unbanked is not just about one product, right? So the first layer of banking the unbanked is making sure everyone in the world has access to payments in their local currency. But then you have, having those people have access to some kind of like the basic yield in their local currency, and then have access to foreign accounts, particularly dollars, and then having access to investment products. And like in the end, banking the unbanked is in the end allowing anyone to operate at a Wall Street level, no matter where they are. And different countries are in different points in that journey of banking the unbanked, which is, I think it's a very nuanced point that it's very, like once you see it that way, every country and every market has an opportunity to bank the unbanked. And I think it's very interesting how Brazil, probably the first step of that, having local currency payments is very well built, but then kind of like moving forward in that ladder is where we're going. Sorry, Ali.
I had just a quick question. Considering both of your strong traditional finance background, aside from this reach and this distribution to new customers from a selling perspective, but also from a serving from a capital market standpoint perspective, where have you seen the most efficiencies that are enabled by blockchain? Of course, we talk about smart contract as one of the key efficiencies in handling this type of transactions, interest payments, and so forth. But from experience, where have you guys seen the most efficiencies, whether it's through an equity offering, a fixed income offering? Would be keen to hear your thoughts.
I think all that stuff, the promise made some years ago, say, hey, it is crypto, it's blockchain, it's global, no boundaries whatsoever, and this is what blockchain, everything around crypto and blockchain is about. Maybe the promise is kind of overrated somehow when it comes down to reality, guys, and you have to sell your products and distribute, and then try to deal with regulation and so on. It's not that easy. It's not that global. So I think that this, if you put that into perspective, you need to find other reasons to tokenize and to use smart contracts and so on. Fortunately, here in our case, have reached we have an opportunity here of cooperating with the central bank, for example, that is developing a CBDC here in Brazil called DREX, that is much more than only the currency. There's a currency and a platform for tokenized assets. So the CBDC is not going to be used by the individuals here. It's much more of a settlement layer, used by institutions in general for what? To trade tokenized assets. So you will have the opportunity here of putting all the rules, into smart contracts. This is pretty interesting that we can really change, the way things happen and bring something new, not only to companies like ourselves, like Mercado Bitcoin, crypto native company, but for the other companies on the financial system and capital markets in general here in our country, and also at the end of the day, just to society. Imagine tokenizing any kind of stuff and using it as a collateral for giving credit to people or companies. So much more decent credit access that were given to people and companies in general. So I think that using the technology, inside the very specific payment system and capital markets, I think this is the upgrade that we need to do, and really use it, use the technology as something really disruptive. The disruption for me is not going global, or disrupting everything that we have built in the last, let's say, 100 years. Especially when it comes down to the capital markets and securities and so on, it won't be like that. So I think that kind of upgrading, radically actually upgrading the system is the main benefit that we will have in the near future.
And just making a quick addition to what Fabricio is saying, Emanuele, when we're talking about capital markets, we see actual benefits in the process. So when we see the blockchain doing maybe a part of what the custody agent does, or the liquidation agent, the depository, the registration agent, so all of a lot of what these guys do, the blockchain provides. So this is something that we're seeing effectively in our process. And when we expand out of capital markets, especially the DCM and ECM business, when we look at maybe real estate, this is like groundbreaking. So we're hearing here in Brazil that the notaries are considering using blockchain to register and update registries of real estate, of houses, of apartments, So this is something that the old and the already settled and old businesses are considering using. So this probably adds a lot of value and efficiency to the process, not only of buying and selling real estate, but also using real estate as a collateral, which is something big here in Brazil. And so we see these things happening, and we are being a part of it, right? So the central bank is providing all the infrastructure for this to happen. So it's really exciting seeing these incumbents, if I would, working towards the innovation with us. And this is something that maybe when we looked at tokenization 3 years ago, 2 years ago even, we didn't see this. So this is something that is really changing and makes us excited about the future.
Awesome. So let me see, like my mental model is blockchain is helping you guys reduce your cost structure, right? Essentially allow you to operate a traditional kind of like fixed income and kind of like equities business at a lower marginal cost. And that allows you to essentially serve smaller users, right? Like you wouldn't be offering these things to retail if your marginal cost was high, because $100 check it wouldn't pay off. And with the blockchain infrastructure, it's the marginal cost is so cheap that you might as well offer it. And you started with your platform, but now you're offering it to others. And tokenization essentially lowers the cost to serve, and it allows you to open new markets. And the second thing you're doing is you're expanding the offering, because the cost of each offering is now lower. You can say, okay, let's tokenize music, let's tokenize like new assets. And because this cost is lower, you don't only expand the same products to more people, you're also bringing new products to markets that if they had to pay all of the legacy costs, you wouldn't be able to be bringing into market. Is that mental model accurate? Like anything you might want to modify in that, or into how to think about the impact of tokenization and why Mercado Bitcoin and tokenization is being successful in that sense?
Yeah, I guess the unit economics of maybe tokenizing an asset would be already better than a normal, like a regular fixed income structure. But also what you said about cross sell in terms of products. So when I have a platform that sells fixed income products, equity products, real estate products, so not only to the retail investor, but when I have this B2B advisor that can also be a realtor. So we already have this type of businesses in Brazil. We have advisors that have a realty branch that buy and sell real estate. So we can make this guy issue, maybe bring us a deal to this a whole building, and he can sell these tokens, which are fractions of these units in the building, to their own investors. So this is like we call IB, investment banking as a service. So that makes us democratize this whole investment banking and issuance structure to these little or medium advisors to make their own business with our platform. And this is unknown here in Brazil, to provide this IB as a service infrastructure for these participants. So this is something that we're also looking forward, right?
And I have a little spicy question for you guys. Of course, MB is a digital assets platform. Tokenization is great. Crypto is great. To stay in the crypto realm of the house, are we going to see ICOs coming through the Mercado Bitcoin platform? Is that already available? Maybe regulated ICOs? How are you guys thinking about that?
Do not think ICOs as the 2017 frenzy, so in the 2017 fashion, no, definitely. But yes, if you say that use technology, to issue tokens for companies, that wants to fundraise themselves, using the technology under any given regulation. And actually, I can say that we are already doing that, at our platform with the startups that we are tokenizing and selling equities, actually using our platform. We have, over 30 different use cases that use the technology, to issue equities at our platform using the regulation here in Brazil called CVM 88. That is the regulation used for kind of equity crowdfunding, not exactly, but inspired by somehow from drivers, pilot drivers, to beer companies, to fintechs, you name it. Many different kinds of companies issuing tokens at our platform, but still trying to find the exact fit. Just like the fixed income business here, is escalated very quickly. We find a way of selling it. Hey, this is fixed income, just like but it's better because it's cheaper for the issuer, it's cheaper for distribution, it's cheaper for structuring the credit, so everybody makes more money out of it, and it's super secure because the technology we're using, and just ring the bell with the investor brain, but for equities, it's kind of different play. People in general, they're not used, to buy or to invest in company with this VC mindset. Okay, you can find the next Meta, you can find the next Google, but you need to find a lot of stuff that maybe is not making a lot of money, it's not making 10x, 30x, 50x. Maybe you'll get your money back. Sometimes you're going to write off. This is part of the dynamics of investing in startups. So, but the quick answer is yes. We can already see it at Mercado Bitcoin, but the thing is that we have to educate people a lot in terms of how to invest in startups in general, and not the ICO frenzy that we saw in 2017. That fortunately we are out of it at Mercado Bitcoin.
On that note, Fabricio, it would be great to learn a little bit more from you about the recently announced BRL1 initiative or product that you guys are working on. Seems like a consortium-based stablecoin program, but very keen to learn more from you about these initiatives, how you see it play within the Mercado Bitcoin ecosystem and more broadly within the global stablecoin market.
That some years ago, and I really mean years, maybe 3 or something like that, we were part of a pilot at the central bank before their initiative, their CBDC initiative, and to trade that judiciary bonds over blockchain. And if you want to trade anything over blockchain, you need to have a stable coin. And as it was a trade settled in Brazilian reais, we developed a Brazilian reais stablecoin at that time, the partnership with Stellar, but it was not supposed to go on production. But actually, it worked fine, and we had all the problems of building something, and at the end of the project, we had a stablecoin. Say, hey, let's launch the stablecoin and see what happens. Try to get some traction and so on. It happened that we listed this Brazilian stablecoin at our platform. We talked to many other exchanges here in Brazil and in other countries, and we didn't find enough traction for it. And the main reason is that because there's kind of a conflict of interest of of being the issuer, an exchange, and putting the stable coin at other exchanges also. I say, okay, maybe was not a great, maybe it's a good idea, but actually without a very clear use case. But after some time, we're very close. The Brazilian crypto ecosystem and the exchanges and so on, we know that the enemy somehow is the status quo. It's not the other folks that are building the crypto ecosystem. So we say, hey, we have a lot of friction still. Even maybe you guys are familiar with PIX. For those who are not, PIX is the way the central bank offer for payments for individuals and companies. It's near real-time payments. The perception is real-time payments. It's for free, and every bank offers for free for their clients. You just go your cell phone or app and you pay people. You can pay your taxi using Pix, for example. Use taxi as an example because it needs to be super quick. You need to offboard. The taxi driver wants to get another passenger, and it's so quick that everybody's happy at the end of the ride. We say, hey, even though we have PIX and you can, withdraw your money, your Brazilian reais from the exchange, put it in your bank, and send you another exchange. When it comes down to amounts like 10K, something like that, you get the anti-fraud, from the banks. You get stuck at the banks. You can move your money around as you want because of this anti-fraud. That and maybe it's some fraud prevention. Maybe it's not that easy, and some kind of hey, why is this guy, moving so much money? Can we keep this money with us? We have investment at the banks also. So to avoid this friction, we, Mercado Bitcoin and other folks from other exchanges, hey, maybe if we build our very own stablecoin at a consortium level, to avoid this friction, if you can move, from one exchange to the bank and back to the other exchange, maybe moving from one exchange to the other. One may argue, hey, you can do that with crypto, but the problem is that maybe sometimes the arbitrage possibilities, the opportunities in terms of arbitrage, you are stuck with Brazilian reais. So avoiding the friction and moving freely money from exchange to the other, and market makers, traders from Brazil and from abroad are the same at every exchange. You have kind of 20, 30, 40 maybe, really big players trading on every exchange, and settling Brazilian reais. So we decided, hey, let's try to find a way, in terms of governance, because partnering with competitors is not that easy. It's no joke. So settling everything, and bringing all these exchanges together. We are in 3 exchanges plus one market maker and a bank. He's a bank in Central America and a market maker at a local market for a long time. So bringing these 4 companies together, there's Mercado Bitcoin, Foxbit, Bitso from Mexico that has an operation here in Brazil also, and KaiInvest, this banking and market maker, bring these 4 companies together to build a governance around the issuance of a Brazilian real stablecoin to avoid this friction between the crypto ecosystem and TradFi, the payment system here in Brazil. It's kind of the easy way is Tether 10 years ago. Don't want to go back and forth, from the bank to the exchange, and so on. So building a stable coin, this is the very critical use case, number 1 use case. Of course, tokenization, super nice. If you tokenize something, put it on one blockchain and needs to trade, you need a Brazilian reais. And you want to settle in Brazilian reais, you need a Brazilian reais use case. Okay, super cool. Payments, maybe an alternative to PIX. Okay, that might work also. DeFi in Brazilian reais, maybe it's another use case, but the very first is moving money around the other exchanges. And since we have announced it, many other local exchanges that are outside this consortium, they have as, hey, how can I join the consortium? Or at least, how can I lease? And is there any benefits? Not a yield-bearing stablecoin, but the yield we're making is not going to be held only by the consortium. We're going to distribute part of the yield as an incentive for other companies, exchanges, or other initiatives, to use the stablecoin at their platforms.
Awesome. So the consortium has right now 4 participants. I imagine you're examining how to expand that from 4 to all of the ones that reached out. The yield generated, you said, it's close to 15% now, I would imagine, from the reserves. That yield is going to be distributed across the consortium participants. Is this championed by Mercado Bitcoin? Is this a separate entity that you guys created and that is owned by the consortium? Tell us a little bit more about that. And then when would we expect this product to launch? When will it be available? Maybe in a Curve pool, in a Uniswap pool, see it in CoinMarketCap? And what do you expect for the stablecoin, say, a year from now, right? Like, what are the expectations for the product? I know I threw a bunch of questions, but wanted to see your thoughts there.
Yeah. Well, it's a completely segregated entity, owned by these 4 companies. So it's a completely new one, a new company. We're going to launch. Well, it's important to mention that Fireblocks is our tech partner with the tokenization stuff. Even though we do have the expertise to do it, even Foxbit, the other exchange, they have also the expertise of tokenization. We decided to use a third party, not directly involved with any of the companies, to be the tokenization party. And yes, we are going to launch on the 3 exchanges in January. So in January, you will be able to trade, against most of the pairs to convert from Brazilian reais to the stable coin that is named BRL1 for free, no fees, no spread whatsoever. So you're going to move freely, from one exchange to the other, convert to Brazilian reais, and trade or do what you want at any of the exchanges. We hope that in February, March, you have other exchanges also that's having conversations with 20 other.
Awesome. All right, guys, we're nearing the time. So Emma, we always have a couple questions before we end. So Emma, I'll let you use the closing of the show.
Sure. So maybe the first one, and this should be maybe a quick answer. Let's see what you guys think of the future of crypto, banking, foreign exchange, capital markets in the US, in Brazil. Sorry, if you had to guess, 5 years from now, our banks, the Mercado Bitcoins of the world, the private credit shops of the world, the central banks of the world, going to be interacting with each other. What is that system going to look like? And I know it's not an easy question to distill in a few thoughts, but curious to hear what the future looks like for you guys.
Well, I think that we have kind of a very good opportunity here in Brazil to really integrate crypto into TradeFi. I think this is going to happen, maybe in a very specific way, of course, everybody's going to say their country is really unique, but I really mean it here in Brazil as we are big enough, to have our own solutions. You have our own banks, you have our own capital market, and very, we have a currency that we only use here in Brazil. It's not part of a block or so on, and a big enough economy to give the right incentives for companies just like Mercado Bitcoin and other banks and other folks around the crypto ecosystems to put some money on it and to try to make some business out of it. So I think that, and as regulators are open, not only the crypto native companies are building around it, but banks in general, they are really, as of now, at least interested in building something on top of crypto and blockchain. So I think that in 5 years, it will be kind of, seamless for some solutions. People are going to be using crypto, using blockchain, using smart contract, and they won't know they're using. And my perception is that this is when a technology really wins. You don't know you're using it, but you are using it. So, but for tokenization and DCM specifically, I'll give to Alexandre the word here.
Yeah, just adding to Fabricio here, when he was saying his thoughts for the next 5 years, I was thinking clusterizing the opportunities in maybe two axes here. One from the product standpoint, and one from the globalization standpoint. So, in terms of products and assets, that are going to be tokenized and are already being tokenized, we feel a lot that the real estate tokenization, carbon credits, energy contracts. So there are a lot of underlyings that aren't in the capital markets currently, a part of the DCM and ECM structures that in Brazil would benefit from being digitalized. So this is something that I really think it's going to evolve a lot during the next 5 years. And this is important not only by buying or selling these types of real world assets, but as using them as collateral for loans. So this is really important for our economy, and this is something that adds efficiency to the economy. So when you look at the GDP solo formula, right? So when you see the total factor productivity, this is something that would really add to the total factor productivity of the economy, since these processes nowadays are really bureaucratic and not online, and this delivery versus payment infrastructure that is being built by Brazilian Central Bank could be used in benefit of these assets. And when I look at globalization, which would be the second dimension, it would be like facilitating this cross-border settlement and investing. So when we look at stablecoins and what the SWIFT infrastructure represents nowadays, there's like a lot of possibilities here to improve it, and also maybe as a consequence, improving also and making easier to foreign investors to invest here in Brazil, and at the same time Brazilians to invest offshore. So maybe these are two aspects of how tokenization and the whole crypto markets, I guess, will evolve.
That's great. And we're going to be there waiting for billions of dollars of new tokenized AUM, millions of new customers, and a lot of transactions taking place on BRL1. Last question for you guys. Where can our audience follow you and find out more about Mercado Bitcoin?
Yeah. Well, for Mercado Bitcoin specifically, but only for Portuguese speakers, unfortunately, Mercado Bitcoin in any network, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, so on. Me, myself, I write more frequently at LinkedIn, so can find Fabricio Tota on LinkedIn. I'm the only one with this name, fortunately, so not that hard,
Also on LinkedIn as Alexandre Reda, so not difficult to find also.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot, guys, for jumping on and for such an insightful conversation. We're very excited to share all of these ideas and thoughts with our audience, and we look forward to host you on the next episode with new developments and new updates around all the great things you guys are working on. Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot, guys.